Hello, seniors. I'm going to start with you guys today since I didn't get much read yesterday. And my tiredness. Tiredness. Let's see. We were talking about, this was the chapter, is it 31? Yeah, our foreign correspondent. Remember, Amy was in France, maybe, or somewhere abroad. I know this one letter, it said London, so let's see. Anyway, Amy was describing the different stuff going on there. She was talking about how people ride. Let's see. She was talking about everyone rides. Old men, stout ladies, little children, and the young folks do a deal of flirting here. I saw a pair exchange rosebuds, for it's the thing to wear one in the buttonhole. I thought it rather a nice little idea. That's where we stopped, I think. In the PM to Westminster Abbey. I've been there and it is glorious. But don't expect me to describe it. That's impossible. That's the truth. So I'll only say it was sublime. This evening we are going to see Fetcher, which will be, and that's capital letters, which will be an appropriate end to the happiest day of my life. And then she's got another, or an addition to that letter. It says midnight. It's very late, but I can't let my letter go in the morning without telling you what happened last evening. Who do you think came in as we were at tea? Laurie's English friends, Fred and Frank Vaughn. I was so surprised, for I shouldn't have known them but for the cards. Both are tall fellows with whiskers, Fred handsome in the English style, and Frank much better, for he only limps slightly and uses no crutches. They had heard from Laurie where we were to be, and came to ask us to their house, but Uncle won't go, so we shall return the call and see them as we can. They went to the theater with us, and we did have such a good time. So that Fetcher was a play, evidently. I was thinking that. For Frank devoted himself to Flo, and Fred and I talked over past, present, and future fun as if we had known each other all our days. Tell Beth Frank asked for her and was sorry to hear of her ill health. Fred laughed when I spoke of Joe and sent his respectful compliments to the big hat. Neither of them had forgotten Camp Lawrence or the fun we had there. What ages ago it seems, doesn't it? Aunt is tapping on the wall for the third time, so I must stop. I really feel like a dissipated London fine lady riding here so late, with my room full of pretty things and my head a jumble of parks, theaters, new gowns, and gallant creatures who say, ah, and twirl their blonde mustaches with the true English lordliness. I long to see you all, and in spite of my nonsense, am, as ever, your loving Amy. And then another letter, and it has Paris. Dear girls, in my last I told you about our London visit, how kind the Vaughns were, and what pleasant parties they made for us. I enjoyed the trips to Hampton Court and the Kensington Museum more than anything else, for at Hampton I saw Raphael's cartoons, and at the museum, rooms full of pictures by Turner, Lawrence, Reynolds, Hogarth, and the other great creatures. The day in Richmond Park was charming, for we had a regular English picnic, and I had more splendid oaks and groups of deer than I could copy. I also heard a nightingale and saw larks go up. We did London to our heart's content, thanks to Frank and Fred. And we were sorry to go away, for though English people are slow to take you in, when they once make up their minds to do it, they cannot be outdone in hospitality, I think. The Vaughns hope to meet us in Rome next winter, and I shall be dreadfully disappointed if they don't. For Grace and I are great friends, and the boys very nice fellows, especially Fred. Well, we hardly settled here when he turned up again, saying he had come for a holiday and was going to Switzerland. Aunt looked sober at first, but he was so cool about it she couldn't say a word. And now we get on nicely and are very glad he came, for he speaks French like a native. And I don't know what we should do without him. Uncle don't know 10 words and insists on talking English very loud, as if that would make people understand him. Aunt's pronunciation is old-fashioned, and Flo and I, though we flattered ourselves that we knew a good deal, find we don't, and are very grateful to have Fred do the parley-vooing, as Uncle calls it. Such delightful times as we are having, sightseeing from morning till night, stopping for nice lunches in the gay cafes, and meeting with all sorts of droll adventures. Rainy days I spend in the Louvre, reveling in pictures. Jo would turn up her naughty nose at some of the finest because she has no soul for art, but I have, and I'm cultivating eye and taste as fast as I can. She would like the relics of great people better, for I've seen her Napoleon's cocked hat and gray coat, his baby's cradle, and his old toothbrush. Also, Marie Antoinette's little shoe, the ring of St. Denis, Charlemagne's sword, and many other interesting things. I'll talk for hours about them when I come, but haven't time to write. The Palace Royal is a heavenly place, so full of, I have no idea how to spell this, say it, bijouterie, and lovely things that I'm nearly distracted because I can't buy them. Fred wanted to get me some, but of course I didn't allow it. Then the boy and champ, I know this is not right, Champs-Élysées are très magnificent. I've seen the imperial family several times. The emperor, an ugly, hard-looking man. The empress, pale and pretty, but dressed in horrid taste, I thought. Purple dress, green hat, and yellow gloves. Little Nap is a handsome boy who sits chatting to his tutor and kisses his hand to the people as he passes in his 4-horse barouche with postilions in red satin jackets and a mounted guard before and after. We often talk in the Tuileries gardens, for they are lovely, though the antique Luxembourg gardens suit me better. Père Lachaise is very curious, for many of the tombs are like small rooms, and looking in, one sees a table with images or pictures of the dead and chairs for the mourners to sit in when they come to lament. That is so Frenchy, n'est pas? Our rooms are on the Rue de Rivoli. I'm sorry, y'all. French-speaking folks. And sitting in the balcony, we look up and down the long, brilliant street. It is so pleasant that we spend our evenings talking there, when too tired with our day's work to go out. Fred is very entertaining and is altogether the most agreeable young man I ever knew, except Laurie, whose manners are more charming. Sounds like she's getting to like Fred a little bit. What do y'all think? I wish Fred was dark, for I don't fancy light men. However, the Vaughns are very rich and come of an excellent family, so I won't find fault with their yellow hair, as my own is yellower. Got the blonde folk. Next week, we're off to Germany and Switzerland, and as we shall travel fast, I shall only be able to give you hasty letters. I keep my diary and try to remember correctly and describe clearly all that I see and admire as Father advised. It is good practice for me, and with my sketchbook will give you a better idea of my tour than these scribbles. Adieu, I embrace you tenderly, votre ami. And the next one is in Germany, I guess, because it says Heidelberg. My dear Mama, having a quiet hour before we leave for Bern, which is in Switzerland, I'll try to tell you what has happened, for some of it's very important, as you will see. The sail up the Rhine was perfect, and I just sat and enjoyed it with all my might. Get Father's old guidebooks and read about it. I haven't words beautiful enough to describe it. At Koblenz, we had a lovely time, for some students from Bonn, with whom Fred got acquainted on the boat, gave us a serenade. It was a moonlight night and about 1 o'clock. Flo and I were waked by the most delicious music under our windows. We flew up and hid behind the curtains, but sly peeps showed us Fred and the students singing away down below. It was the most romantic thing I ever saw. The river, the bridge of boats, the great fortress opposite, and moonlight everywhere, and music fit to melt a heart of stone. When they were done, we threw down some flowers and saw them scramble for them, kiss their hands to the invisible ladies, and go laughing away to smoke and drink beer, I suppose. Next morning, Fred showed me one of the crumpled flowers in his vest pocket, and looked very sentimental. I laughed at him and said I didn't throw it, but Flo, which seemed to disgust him, for he tossed it out of the window and turned sensible again. I'm afraid I'm going to have trouble with that boy, it begins to look like. The baths at Nassau were very gay. So was Baden-Baden, where Fred lost some money, and I scolded him. He needs someone to look after him when Frank is not with him. Kate said once she hoped he'd marry soon, and I quite agree with her. That would be well for him. Frankfurt was delightful. I saw Goethe's house, Schiller's statue, and Danneker's famous I don't know how to say that, Ariadne, which I'm sure is screwed up. It was very lovely, but I should have enjoyed it more if I had known the story better. I didn't like to ask, as everyone knew it or pretended they did. I wish Joe would tell me all about it. I ought to have read more, for I find I don't know anything, and it mortifies me. Now comes the serious part, for it happened here, and Fred is just gone. He has been so kind and jolly that we all got quite fond of him. I never thought of anything but a traveling friendship. Here it comes, till the serenade night. Since then, I've begun to feel that the moonlight walks, balcony talks, and daily adventures were something more to him than fun. I haven't flirted, Mother, truly, but remembered what you said to me, and I have done my very best. I can't help it if people like me. I don't try to make them, and it worries me if I don't care for them, though Joe says I haven't got any heart. Now I know Mother will shake her head and the girls say, oh, the mercenary little wench. But I've made up my mind, and if Fred asks me, I shall accept him, though I'm not madly in love. I like him, and we get on comfortably together. He is handsome, young, clever enough, and very rich, ever so much richer than the Lawrences. I don't think his family would object, and I should be very happy, for they are kind, well-bred, generous people, and they like me. Fred, as the eldest twin, will have the estate, I suppose, and such a splendid one as it is. A city house in a fashionable street, not so showy as our big houses, but twice as comfortable and full of solid luxury, such as English people believe in. I like it, for it's genuine. I've seen the plate, the family jewels, the old servants, and pictures of the country place with its park, great house, lovely grounds, and fine horses. Oh, it would be all I should ask for, and I'd rather have it than any title such as girls snap up so readily, and find nothing behind. I may be mercenary, but I hate poverty and don't mean to bear it a minute longer than I can help. One of us must marry well, Meg didn't. Joe won't. Beth can't yet. So I shall, and make everything cozy all around. I wouldn't marry a man I hated or despised, you may be sure of that. And though Fred is not my model hero, he does very well. And in time I should get fond enough of him, if he was very fond of me, and let me do just as I like. So I've been turning the matter over in my mind the last week, for it is impossible to help seeing that Fred liked me. He never goes with Flo, always gets on my side of the carriage, table, or promenade, looks sentimental when we are alone, and frowns at anyone who ventures to speak to me. Yesterday at dinner, when an Australian officer stared at us and said something to his friend, a rakish-looking baron, about ein wunderschönes Blanchen. My German's no better. Fred looked as fierce as a lion and cut his meat so savagely it nearly flew off his plate. He isn't one of the cool, stiff Englishmen, but he is rather peppery, for he has Scotch blood in him, as one might guess from his bonny blue eyes. Well, last evening we went up to the castle about sunset, at least all of us but Fred, who was to meet us there after going to the Poste Restante for letters. I guess the post office. We had a charming time poking around the ruins, the vaults where the monster Tun, T-U-N, is, the beautiful gardens made by Elector long ago for his English wife. I liked the great terrace best, for the view was divine. So while the rest, went to see the rooms inside, I sat there trying to sketch the gray stone lion's head on the wall with scarlet woodbine sprays hanging round it. I felt as if I'd got into a romance, sitting there watching the nectar rolling through the valley, listening to the music of the Austrian band below, and waiting for my lover like a real storybook girl. I had a feeling that something was going to happen, and I was ready for it. I didn't feel blushy or quaky, but quite cool and only a little excited. By and by, I heard Fred's voice, and then he came hurrying through the great arch to find me. He looked so troubled that I forgot all about myself and asked what the matter was. He said he'd just got a letter begging him to come home, for Frank was very ill, so he was going home, for he was going at once in the night train and only had time to say goodbye. I was very sorry for him and disappointed for myself, but only for a minute, because he said, as he shook hands and said it in a way that I could not mistake, I shall soon be back, come back, and you won't forget me, Amy? I didn't promise, but I looked at him and he seemed satisfied, and there was not time for anything but messages and goodbyes, for he was off in an hour, and we all miss him very much. I know he wanted to speak, but I think from something he once hinted that he promised his father not to do anything of the sort yet a while. For he is a rash boy, and the old gentleman dreads a foreign daughter-in-law. We shall soon meet in Rome, and then, if I don't change my mind, I'll say, yes, thank you, when he says, will you please? Of course, this is all very private, but I wished you to know what was going on. Don't be anxious about me. Remember, I am your prudent Amy, and be sure I will do nothing rashly. Send me as much advice as you like. I'll use it if I can. I wish I could see you for a good talk, Marmee. Love and trust me, ever your Amy. And that's the end of chapter 31, which I think was just called Letters, maybe. No, it was called Our Foreign Correspondent, I think. Yes. It was called Our Foreign Correspondent, which, of course, is Amy. And so next time we will be on 32, called Tender Troubles. Let's see what that's like. And tomorrow I have to go back to the library and renew the book, so I hope I can get this much of Little Women. Or if I can't, I've got it on my Kindle, so it's no big deal. But I just love having the book. And I've enjoyed reading from this gorgeous book so much. Just beautiful. Okay, seniors, hope to see you live at 5. And I guess that's it. Have a lovely Friday, TGIFers. Love ya. Be sweet, don't be ugly.